Hello and welcome to Odds on Champions League Match Day 1. We are back with our favorite competition and with a great team today. Tom, Rennie, Ronan, Murphy. Hello, guys. To analyze the games we have on Tuesday and the two early kickoffs on Wednesday. So plenty of good games. Some games actually that look more like Conference League games, but still in the Champions League, and we are going to know more about Pafos, for instance. So stay with us. We are going to learn a lot with these guys. Hopefully, we are going to make some money. So, of course, if you enjoy the video, press the like, subscribe. 37,000. I think we reached this milestone this weekend. So just press the button. And now let's go on with the show. Well, it's a strange match day in the Champions League. Games on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, two early kickoffs on Tuesday. And the first one is a really good one. Athletic Club, Arsenal, probably the most English stadium in the Spanish La Liga, is San Mamés. It's a great atmosphere. Athletic are back to the Champions League. Unfortunately for them, Nico Williams is missing, and they are going to miss him because we saw it even this weekend when they lost to Alavés, the first defeat of the season. And it's going to be very tough for them facing Arsenal. We saw some bits of the quality they bought this summer, Tom, this Saturday with great goals scored by 𝐬𝐵𝗵𝐻, with 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜 already scoring some goals. So probably this is going to be too much for Athletic in their comeback to the Champions League.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'd be loath in the first round of games to discount Athletic Club in a game like this, even without Williams. I think that you underestimate this team at your peril, right? How many times has that been proved across the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? That they always pull out performances you don't expect. You mentioned the stadium. It's an incredibly fantastic place to play. And in Ernesto Valverde, they have one of the best managers in the competition. So I wouldn't discount them at all. I'd expect a very organised 4-2-3-1. I'd expect a very solid lineup, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was a really low-scoring game. I think the trouble with that is that kind of suits Arsenal, right? Arsenal win games in a very, very ugly way. They are really not a pretty team in any way. They don't play pretty football. They don't have pretty patterns. They don't have a particular style. They bludgeon you. They are the footballing equivalent of a jackhammer. That's basically what they are at this point. And you even saw at the weekend. Look, great victory over Forest, right? A Forest team in obvious transition, changing from Nuno. Postecoglou comes in. That wasn't a modicum of the ideas of Ange Postecoglou at the weekend just gone. But it still took, a corner for the opening goal to be scored. And yeah, it's a great volley from 𝐬𝐵𝗵𝐻 and all of that. But it comes from a set piece that comes out and gets planted in. So I don't think this particular game is going to be a thriller. I certainly don't see any more than, let's say, 2 goals in it at a push. And I think whoever wins it will win without conceding, because both teams are, in general, quite good defensively, very solid. So, look, I think it might be one I'd avoid. I picked out a couple of nice bets for you. I think Arsenal win to 0 is something I say every week, Edu, to you. And it keeps coming in, so I'm not going to stop doing it. It's come in, 3 or 4 this year or something like that. So Arsenal win to 0 comes in at double your money, as it often does. Always worth a punt. And I was annoyed at the weekend just gone that I went with Declan Rice assist because they were going to score from a corner. They scored from a corner, and he wasn't on the field. So he is going to start this game, and he is going to provide an assist. I'm convinced of it. And the odds are really good for this Declan Rice assist, 4.33. So tough game, tight game. I think Arsenal shade it.
Well, we saw 2 close games for Arsenal playing away at Old Trafford and at Anfield. These teams are very good at set pieces, historically Athletic, and we know how good Arsenal are in set pieces. And Ronan, also, Athletic's rival is Real Sociedad. We have Arteta, former Real Sociedad manager, and half of the team actually played for Real Sociedad.
Yeah, it's one of these rivalry games or derby games where the only difference is that they're wearing a different jersey rather than the usual one. But but I suppose Tom mentioned someone who's used to changing jerseys, Declan Rice. We've seen him do it in his international career. So yeah, Arsenal players are used to something like that. This is one of Arsenal's harder fixtures in the competitions. If you I love the Opta supercomputer on these shows, and it's back again for this season, and they've done the fixture calculation for the league phase, and they have the second easiest schedule with two of their harder games, Atletico and Bayern, both at home. Inter away is their other kind of really tricky game, but yeah, looks like they have one of the easiest schedules, and they're also the second favourite to win the tournament altogether with a 16% chance of winning the Champions League according to the Opta supercomputer. Only Liverpool are higher, 20.4%. So there's big hopes in the English clubs actually going all the way in the Champions League this season. At least that's what AI is going to tell you anyway. So me and Tom will try and tell you something a bit different. We'll use the eye test instead of the paper test. And yeah, I think I agree with Tom that this is going to be a low scoring game because Arsenal haven't conceded goals this season. The only goal they've conceded has been that wonder goal from Dominic Szoboszlai. So they are looking for their big man up front to make the difference. And when these teams met in the summer in a friendly match, it was the first time Victor Gyökeres was on the target for Arsenal. It was a 3-0 in the Emirates Cup, which Arsenal lifted, surprisingly, after also winning a penalty shootout in that match. So they won 3-0 in normal time, and then there was penalties, which they also won 6-5. So they lifted the Emirates Cup against Athletic Club. So they have recent history against them. Victor Gyökeres has recent history against them. He has 3 goals in 4 games so far this season. He scored 6 and 8 in the Champions League last season. He scored 5 and 9 in Europe the season before, although in the Europa League. So I think he's going to score again here. So Victor Gyökeres, anytime scorer, 250 is my tip.
Well, the under that Tom suggested is around 1.9, so it pays basically the same, the over or the under for this game. Arsenal to win. For Ray, Nick, Arsenal to win 2-0. 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐲 sees more goals, both teams to score, and over 2.5 goals. Well, the favorites, by the way, to win this Champions League is Barcelona, according to the bookies. They have also an easy schedule. And then, as Ronan said, Arsenal and Liverpool, both with odds around 7. I was checking in Bet365 if you want to bet on the winner of this league in the Champions League. Actually, was Liverpool, right? Last year, the champions of this league. And at the same time, we have PSV Royal Union Saint-Gilloise, the Dutch champions against the Belgian champions. Debut for them in the Champions League. PSV, massive favorites. We know that it's not easy to win at the Philips Stadium. Peter Bosz, the manager, I guess they still cannot believe how they won the Eredivisie last season, but they started also in good fashion, Ronan.
Yeah, they won the Super Cup game against Go Ahead Eagles, obviously, to start season, and won 4 or 5 games since. So they're on a great start to this season, and it's going to be an interesting kind of debut in the Champions League for USG, for Union. They're coming against former European Cup winners, because PSV won it back in 1988. If anybody is old enough here to remember that one, that was before Netherlands won Euro 88. That was a great summer for the Dutch, but yeah, we hope to recreate that again sometime soon. But so it's a long time since Dutch teams won some trophies. But yeah, they'll obviously want one over on their old enemy in this match. These teams surprisingly also played a friendly this summer, and PSV won 1-0 away. So that's going to be, they're going to hope that they can do the same again here. And I think PSV are in excellent form at the moment. I like to look at a PSV win on screen 185, but as well, I also like to look of Ruben van Bommel. He's a Dutch legend of dynasty, I suppose, because his dad was a former Dutch player, and his grandfather was a former Dutch manager. So yeah, this is a man who can get among the goals. He's got 3 goals in 5 games so far this season. He's averaging 1.85 shots per 90. So I'm going to go for Ruben van Bommel over 1.5 shots on target in this one, 2.75, because I think PSV can win this one. They're unbeaten at home in the league phase last season. They drew with Sporting and beat Girona. They beat Shakhtar. They beat Liverpool. They beat Juventus at home to knock them out in the playoffs. We won't mention the 7-1 against Arsenal.
No.
But apart from that, PSV were excellent in the Champions League at home last season, so I think they could do it again this season. The only thing is that, going back to that Opta supercomputer, they have the hardest draw of all the teams in the league phase. They have Leverkusen, Napoli, Olympiacos, Liverpool, 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐶𝐻, Newcastle and Bayern after this game. So they have to win, and for that reason, my main tip is PSV to win, 185.
Well, they qualified for the playoffs last season, as Ronan mentioned, and surprised us, knocking out Juventus. Tom, do you remember this Winners' Cup final that Ronan mentioned?
No, I wasn't born. I wasn't born, if anyone asks. So I don't know. I'm just so young. I look old, but blame my children for that. But I don't remember that, but I do know this is going to be a good game. That I do know. I'm actually quite looking forward to this, only because if you look at the recent PSV games they played this season, it's goals. And I think the Van Bommel tip is really good, actually. Scored a couple, maybe scored one in the 3-5 win at the weekend. It was Ricardo Pepi that scored a couple, because I was going to pick out him as well as a different player for PSV, who they're going to be a funny watch this season in the Champions League. They've got a couple of players here, and Ricardo Pepi is the biggest one. He's got a great chance of not only going to the World Cup, but maybe starting in the World Cup for the USA come next summer. The fight over the USA number 9 is a huge story over there. Is it going to be Flo Balogun at Monaco? Is it going to be Ricardo Pepi? Is Josh Sargent over at Norwich going to step up, right? One or two other players in the mix as well, but those may be the top 3. But Ricardo Pepi, it's a huge year for him. It's a huge profile games for him. This is a player who can run in behind. He can hold the ball up. He's getting physically stronger. You can see it inside his shirt. There's more muscle there than there was 18 months ago, 2 years ago. He looks fit, he looks sharp, and he's scoring goals. So in this particular game, Ricardo Pepi anytime is a real nice little tip, as is the Van Bommel that the Ronan said. But also, I'm not sure on Union Saint-Gilloise at this point in this competition. I'm going to spare my judgment on them until we get a couple of games in. All I can really suggest is their games tend to be quite tight, and PSV tend to win big. Looking at the first few weeks of the season, I think at home, PSV scoring lots of goals. You mentioned their great Champions League record. Look for a Pepi goal and look for them to win. At a -1.5 handicap is the first double your money. So 2-0 or more, quite like that, or 3-1, if you want to look at it. And also, I picked out a few of these today to cover a few bases. A PSV to win group bet of 1-0, 2-0, or 3-0 comes in at 4. Really, really nice, I think. So that's what I'm going with.
All right, PSV win convincingly. For Roy, Abai is telling us the opposite, actually. I just don't trust Eindhoven. They can show you anytime, but it's goals for me, over 1.5 goals, or both teams to score. Ricardo Pepi to score. Someone also is saying these are the early kickoffs. Then we go to Lisbon, Benfica. Karabakh. Benfica suffered and sweat to be in this Champions League stage because they had to play 2 preview games, 2 knockout games with Nice, and especially tough with Fenerbahce. Mourinho's Fenerbahce, after playing in Benfica, was not anymore Mourinho's Fenerbahce. We have Bruno Lage as the manager, and they drew at the weekend with Santa Clara. Of course, Karabakh is one of the weakest teams on paper in this Champions League. So, Tom, Benfica are massive favorite. Karabakh, by the way, to be here, they had to win 3 games or 3 knockout rounds to be in this Champions League.
Well, let me just say this now, that if we do this show every week for the 8 group games and you ask me about Karabakh, I'm going to say Karabakh are going to lose. So you might as well just get that out there now. They are the minnows of the tournament. They have the lowest budget, I think, of any team in the 36, certainly in the lowest 2 or 3 clubs. They might pull off a shock somewhere. If they're going to, it might be this, but I'm still not going to bet on them to win. In terms of Benfica, like my only experience of Bruno Lage really regularly was his time at Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I hated that team viscerally. They were just so negative, and he was always so confrontational, and I think they haven't improved Wolves, so maybe he wasn't the biggest issue there, but I consider him to be a fairly negative manager because of those times. And people who see him at his other clubs can convince me otherwise. You can absolutely convince me on that. But I look at some of the players. I look at the recent form. I think Pavlidis up front scored the weekend. Very good players, got good pedigree, scoring in European competition. I think it was goal threat here. But from seeing the results the first couple of weeks of the season, from my assessment of the manager, I'm not expecting them to be thrilling here. They seem to be a team of very young players and very old players and nothing in the middle. Why does that happen? Because the Portugal to Premier League pipeline continues to decimate the Portuguese league, right? So I expect them to win here. I would look at them to win by a quite comfortable margin. I'm gonna cover some bets here, only because I'm concerned about Benfica. Firstly, if they win 1-0, 2-0, or 3-0, you get that at 2.5. So that's fine, right? I think all those scores are very likely. I cannot see a goal by the opposition in this match. If they are going to win big, you've got to be quite daring. Even over 2.5 is only 1.67. Is that worth your time? I think it's probably not. I did quite like exactly 3 goals at 5. I can see this being, they score a couple, the game peters out, they nick a late one, it goes to 3. It's a bit risky, but it comes in at 5. But I just think a fairly comfortable 1 or 2-0 win for Benfica, and we never speak of this again.
Well, actually, Karabakh to finish last in the league is 4.5, Ronan, because the favorites to do so are Kairat Almaty.
Yeah, I don't think it's the worst bet because obviously goal difference and things like that could play into it. And if you look at Karabakh last season in the Europa League, they finished last in the Europa League last season, 36 of 36. They won just 1 game in the Europa League last season. So they're actually back in the Champions League for the first time since 2017. So it's not like they even have recent pedigree in this. Yeah, well, in the main stage, obviously they usually go in the Champions path and then get knocked out. But luckily they had Shelburne just after Damien Duff walked out this season, so they were able to get through. But yeah. But Shelburne are in the Conference League, so things are looking up for the League of Ireland. We'll move on from that. That's a different show later in the week. So we'll talk about Benfica. Benfica have been playing domestic or European football since July 31st. Their season has been going on a while, and they still haven't lost. So they're not going to lose here either. Like Tom said, I don't think Karabakh at 15 is worth even considering putting a penny on. Or a cent. I don't think you can look at that. I think Benfica, they look to have invested well. They got that Carreras money, obviously, from Madrid, and they bought 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗀𝐿, who hasn't played yet, but Richard Rios came in from Brazil, and he was highly thought of. They've got Franjo Ivanovic as well up front, and I think this will be a team that can cause a few upsets along the way in the Champions League. This one won't be an upset. It's fairly guaranteed they're going to win, so I think they can win at home. They can win at half-time and full-time, so Benfica home is a bit better than Benfica to win at 161. But yeah, I think, like Tom says, maybe there'll be exactly 3 goals in this, but I went a slightly safer path. Maybe there might be 4 goals for Benfica in this. So Benfica over 2.5 goals is exactly 2.
Well, Benfica to play the playoffs is 2.2. Actually, it's good money. Last season also they qualified for this round. And I remember that Karabakh, Ronan, they drew both games with Atlético de Madrid, and they were in the same group as I believe was Chelsea and Roma, and Atlético de Madrid went out because of these draws against Karabakh. I'm this old to remember those things.
What about the 1988 Cup Winners' Cup final? Do you remember that?
No.
That was good, wasn't it? No?
I don't. I remember actually the one Zaragoza beat Arsenal with Seaman.
Yeah, Naeem from the halfway line, 93.
Naeem, exactly. That one I remember. I'm this old. Well, Mohamed, Benfica is a handicap minus 1.5. Benfica to win both halves for Nick Taylor. Big favorites Benfica. And then one of the big games on Tuesday, Juventus Borussia Dortmund. Long time ago also we saw a Champions League final actually with these teams and Dortmund winning with Summer winning the Ballon d'Or later on. But now 2 different stories. Both had a great weekend, especially Juventus. I guess they are still celebrating the win over Inter in the Derby d'Italia, that late goal scored by 𝐿𝐵𝐴𝐵𝐿. Thanks also to Sommer, I have to say, with Thuram enjoying the goals from his children in the standings. And it's a perfect start for Tudor. 3 wins in this start of the season. I have many doubts about the Juventus transfer market and about Tudor, but still it's a convincing start. And Dortmund, Ronan, they won away. That is always a very difficult team to back when they are playing away. We know it in the Bundesliga. The safe bet in this start of the season, and you are backing him a lot, is 𝐬𝐵RACY.
Yeah, I haven't actually picked him in this one, but maybe I should have. The odds are usually around 170, and it's worth going for. So yeah, he's scored in 8 Bundesliga games in a row, and he was obviously one of the top scorers in the Champions League last season. So he's always worth looking at, and I should have put him down here. I don't know why I didn't, because I put him. I've been right every time for 3 weeks in a row in the Bundesliga because he's done it. So I didn't do it here, but mainly because I don't trust Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. That is mainly why. Because you can't trust Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga. So why would you trust them in the Champions League? And especially not away, like you said, he does. So it's just, this is a team that could do anything on any day. They beat Heidenheim 2-0 at the weekend, a good result, but they were playing against 10 men. They've kept a clean sheet against Union Berlin. Before that, they won 3-0. And so back-to-back clean sheets for Borussia Dortmund. We are not used to that. We're more used to what they opened the season with, was conceding 3 goals to St. Pauli, which should never happen for Borussia Dortmund, but for a team like Borussia Dortmund, because it's Borussia Dortmund, it is what happens. And Juventus, we saw them at the weekend. They are capable of scoring lots of goals. They beat Inter 4-3 at the weekend. So yeah, these teams played in a friendly again this summer. So if you play in a friendly, you're going to draw that team in the Champions League, is what it seems like this summer. Juve won 2-1 in that one, so I think this is another match that could have 3 or more goals in it. So I do like total goals over 2.5 again here, 183 in this match. And maybe a little less is both teams score yes.
Actually, it's a tough game, I think, to bet on. Roy is also going for over 2.5 goals. Tom?
Yeah, I feel like I'm being manipulated by the 𝐷𝗵𝗿 d'Italia, to be honest. If you'd have asked me on Friday to put this together, I would have gone for a quite tight game. But after the madness of the game at the weekend, there was something about the way the game went. Of course, the winning goal was absolutely incredible, but there was chances, there was intensity, there was a bizarre goal scored by Lloyd Kelly. I thought I was on the crazy pills when I saw that go in. So, there was something about Juve I really enjoyed this weekend, and I've got to watch the game in further detail. But I like almost the gung-ho nature of the way Igor Tudor's team played in elements of that game. It almost reminded me a bit of the Barca Inter Champions League semi-finals, with Juve playing the kind of Inter role in a way, in that I wasn't expecting them to play in this manner, and they're overloading forward, and Thuram is up there with 𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐽, and suddenly McKennie's this weird miscellaneous player who plays in all positions is now wing back all of a sudden. When did that happen? I must have missed that. But he's bombing forward because he plays in so many positions. So there was a great intensity, which I wasn't expecting. It was a deserved win in terms of their daring, I thought, against Inter. Could be quite damaging for them down the line and their new boss, which, we'll get to another time, I'm sure. So really like the look of that. And in terms of Borussia Dortmund, I think they'll score, mainly because of 𝐬𝐵RACY, for the point that Ronan made. I've got him anytime goal scorer. Put that in. What kind of person wouldn't put that in their bet? But no, look, they have goal scorers. They have the goal scorer. And I think you obviously don't trust them in the Champions League. I think that's absolutely right. But I think there's a power coming from their midfield. I'd expect probably a change in central midfield. If it were me, I would probably start 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐽 and Bellingham in midfield and change out Pascal Gross, who is a great player. Don't run very much. That's maybe what I would do. I don't think that's what 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐽
is that because you've been painting English flag St. George's crosses on the roundabouts? Is that why?
I was very much caught into, I like to think of it as the river of urine going down the South Bank at the weekend on my way to work. It was, idiots. Anyway, to this game, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be goals, and I would shade for Juve. And again, I'm probably being totally manipulated by the 𝐷𝗵𝗿 d'Italia, but I think both can concede and both have got goals in them. Over 3.5 goals in the game without a score was just 3.5, which I really liked. I'll take Juve on its own. I don't know if I punt on that. So the first double your money is over 2.5 goals in the match and Juve win. I think that's quite nice. If you feel really daring to take the first tip, double it with the second tip. Juve win over 3.5 is 5.5. These are a little bit daring, but if the goals start flowing, that's the way it's going to go.
Well, Juve double chance and plus 1.5. We have Abai telling us this, and also Roy or Joseph, something similar. Well, perfect start for Juventus, although, again, I think they have a lot of problems that we are going to see throughout the season. And now we go to Madrid, Real Madrid, Olympique Mareille, also perfect start for Real Madrid, for Xabi Alonso, even if they suffered a lot against Real Sociedad because they were down to 10 men. The referee saw a red card that no one else could see. But the good news is also Kylian Mbappe. He's absolutely on fire. He's winning the games by himself with France, with Real Madrid. He looks better than ever, really on fire, indeed. And Olympique Mareille is a team that is impossible to predict. Tom is a cyclotimic team, sometimes on their ups, sometimes on their downs. They won at the weekend, and Roberto De Zerbi is doing a great job, actually, even qualifying the team finally for the Champions League. But it's going to be very tough for them to get anything from the Bernabeu.
Yeah, it is. I think that's right. Though, I mean, to your point on Real Madrid, they've won their games, but they've not been amazing. They've not been convincing. And I think it's evident it's a new manager, it's a new team, it's a new ethos. It's been a long time with Carlo Ancelotti, so it was obviously going to be that way. Plus, Xabi Alonso was always going to come in full of personality. And you come in at Real Madrid, you get about 3 weeks to write the rule book. And if you start losing games, you get sacked and they get Carlo Ancelotti back. So, like, it has to work out for him. And I think the win over Real Sociedad this weekend was very important in that development. And also, just to pick out Dean Howson, God bless him, it's great that he's doing a one-man personal tribute to the career of Jonathan Woodgate. I think it's fantastic that he's done that. All he's got to do now is grow the hairline and get the Alice band, and he's doing the whole thing, come back and start dating a celebrity Big Brother contestant. That's the pathway I think he's now on. But away from that, he's looked a bit ropey. He has looked ropey defensively. The position's not quite there. He's suddenly gone from, I think there was a great unit at Bournemouth. All those guys together were so good. That back five last season was so strong. And like, it's almost goes to the wider Virgil van Dijk conversation with Andy Robertson previously, and now with Milos Kerkez, former teammate of Dean Howson. Sometimes the unit's got to work. And I don't know at the moment whether the unit at Real Madrid works for Dean Howson's deficiencies. There are certainly huge elements of quality that he's got. You know, his general positional sense is really good. Obviously, his height is there. He needs to get stronger, needs to get bigger, but he's deceptively quick and reads the game well, all of that. But I'd be concerned about him in a back four playing in this game with the group he played with against Sociedad. It doesn't seem to work. Midfield, I think, is slow right now for Real Madrid, and I think that needs to be fixed. Probably in terms of transfer windows, or Bellingham comes back and he plays slightly deeper in a few weeks. We'll see how that plays out. But you mentioned it, Kylian Mbappe, outstanding start to this season. Maybe he's going to start to take his Real Madrid career properly and prove to us that he's the best player in the world that we have all been saying for a long, long time. He is the person who's going to replace Lionel Messi on that throne of best player in Europe. And would anyone say he is? I don't know. Kind of, a bit maybe, but there shouldn't be a conversation because he is the most talented player in Europe and he's the Real Madrid number 9. So let's see this through. And he looked fantastic at the weekend and has looked sharp first few weeks of the season. So obviously put Mbappe in your bet here. Mbappe anytime is a pretty low 1.62. You double that with a Real Madrid win, it's only 1.81. If you go first goal Mbappe, which is a touch daring, and add that to a Real Madrid win, it's 3.75, which I actually think is quite nice here, considering our Real Madrid favourites are going to win, probably. Who's the most likely scorer of that first goal? It's Kylian Mbappe, so I think that's quite nice. And just briefly on Marseille, it's excellent in a way that Roberto De Zerbi has managed to gather together almost all of football's bastards in the same squad. I'm amazed they haven't got Jamie Vardy. You know, I thought that was a shoo-in signing for this summer, but there you are. But look, very good at the weekend. They have goal scorers. They have solidity. They have a very malleable coach who can read a game well. So there's every chance of an upset here. But in terms of bets, go for Real Madrid. And I've also found a nice group bet here of 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. You know I love those. That's 3.5. Quite nice.
Only Jon Snow is missing if we are gathering all the bastards, Tom, in Olympique Mareille. Well, and we have to add also Vinicius' low form. We have to talk about Real Madrid, Ronan, because if Mbappe is the star, the only star of this Real Madrid, is also because Vinicius hasn't been playing for the last 10 months.
Yeah, this is kind of one where everything kind of went off the boil for him after that Ballon d'Or nonsense that was played out in the media, and you kind of wonder, is the off-field stuff kind of affecting on-field stuff for Vinicius? But I'm sure Xabi Alonso is the man that can kind of put his arm around him and give him a kick in the bum and show him how to play football again. Because if you're out there training on the training pitch with Xabi Alonso, he definitely can show you how to play football. He knows how to play football. He is not one of these guys that is just a spreadsheet manager. He knows exactly how to do it. So, yeah, maybe he can bring him around, and maybe he can bring fellow struggler Trent Alexander-Arnold around. Maybe he can improve him, because, yeah, we don't know what's going on there. And I think Liverpool fans were delighted to see that Trent has arrived at Real Madrid only to be dropped for a guy who probably does remember PSV winning the European Cup in 1988 and Karabakh. So yeah. So yeah, we'll see how Real Madrid go under Alonso. But I know the performances haven't been spectacular. But like Tom said, you just need to win games to begin life at Real Madrid. That's what Xabi Alonso has been doing, and that's what he should continue to do here. Because Marseille, it's a big ask for them coming back into Europe. They weren't in Europe last season. Real Madrid are the best team in European Cup history. They didn't win it in 1988, but they've won a lot of other times. One could be worth looking up there if you can, Edu, maybe, is to see what Real Madrid are to win the league phase, because
really high.
Although up they're only giving them a 5.8% chance of winning the competition, they have a 49.1% chance of finishing the top 8 in the league phase, and I think they could win it because they've got one of the easiest schedules of any of the big teams. Marseille and Kairat to begin with, and then Monaco and Benfica to finish. So if they can pick up 6 points and 6 to start things off, they could put themselves in a great position, and then they have some nice fixtures to finish with. So yeah, Marseille, on the other hand, they have the 4th most difficult schedule. Obviously, playing Real Madrid away in your first game is definitely going to add to that. I don't think they are going to cause any upsets here. They might score. That's the only thing that could ruin Tom's 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 kind of bet. But I'm going to go for an Alvaro classic here. That Real Madrid are going to win the second half. That's 166. I think it was always worth a look in the Champions League last season, and it should be worth a look again this season.
11, Real Madrid to win the league phase, since they are playing at Anfield, they are playing Man City at home, they are playing Juventus at home. That's why the odds are a little bit high. Trent Alexander-Arnold incoming. Yeah, perhaps Carvajal needs some rest. Real Madrid to win, both need to score. No. Joseph, the opposite. I think Maxwell will score. Real Madrid are not reliable, both teams to score. Remember, Rudiger is injured, so probably we are going to see again 𝐻𝐸𝐳 and Militao playing together. I think there is a slightly overconfidence in 𝐻𝐸𝐳's way of playing, and that's why he commits some mistakes while playing, but he's still very, very young. And next stop is in London. Tottenham Villarreal, Europa League winners clash. Interesting game, actually. This one with both having a good start of the season, I would say, in their competitions. Spurs smash West Ham. Sorry, Tom, again, set pieces are very important in the Premier League, and West Ham are suffering a lot, so only one defeat this season against Bournemouth, plus the European Super Cup, where they competed really well against PSG. And Villarreal also lost to Atlético de Madrid, but they were very unlucky, Ronan. They are playing well. They had a good market. 𝐻𝐸𝐻𝐸, Pepe is playing really good. They hit the woodwork. They had many chances. They conceded 2 shots in target. They lost 2-0. But be careful. I kind of like the odds for Villarreal here, and they have a great manager like Marcelino.
Yeah, they could. They obviously didn't deserve to lose just 2-0 in that match against the weekend. And they've started well in La Liga. They won the first 2 matches without conceding. They obviously drew against Celta in the next match. And you would have thought they could have, with the performance they put in at the weekend, they could have picked up some points against Atletico. But it just wasn't to happen. And I think this Villarreal team could kind of surprise a few people this season. I know they weren't in the Champions League in a few years, but the last time they actually made the semi-finals back in 21-22. So yeah, this is a team that can cause upsets. Tottenham, they have been much improved this season. Like you said, they played well in that game against PSG in the Super Cup, and they've won 3 of 4 in the Premier League since. So this Tottenham team, I've liked the signings they've made during the summer. I think they can be a good team, a force again in the Premier League, and knock on them those kind of top 5 spaces in the Premier League this season. I don't think they're going to have another one where they're closer to relegation zone than to Europe and need to win a European competition, because with the league phase now in the Champions League, they can't be dropped into the Europa League and the Conference League anymore. So I don't think they're going to win the Champions League, so they'll need to get into Europe via the league, and I think they can do that because I like what they've signed in the summer. The fact they're starting off the Champions League with a home game is good for them. 191 for the Tottenham win looks pretty good. I think that's nice, but Tom might be able to describe it more accurately, as he would have been watching very closely at the weekend. But Xavi Simons assisted the opener from a corner against West Ham, and I think he could do something similar here, because he started the season well with RB Leipzig, despite the fact that he was being linked with a move to the Premier League. He had a goal and an assist in the Cup and the League in 2 games for RB Leipzig, and I think he can continue to provide assists for Tottenham, and he is on corners, so why not? Xavi Simons, I was going to say Xabi Alonso, that's a totally different player for a totally different manager. Yeah, Xavi Simons to score assist is 191.
All right, Tom, how do you see this?
Yeah, I think Tottenham are great. I really do. I think they've been very impressive. I think that they struggled against Bournemouth because Bournemouth are so well organised and scored the first goal, and for whatever reason they had an off day, Spurs, and they struggled. But in the other games this season, they've been fantastic. I thought the City away performance was one of the best performances by an away team you're ever going to see in Premier League football. I thought they were exceptional. And against West Ham at the weekend, look, I think they weren't great for the first 45 minutes. I think they were probably just about the better team, but West Ham had their moments and Spurs struggled. The reason for that was Matthias Tel. I can't understand why they signed him. I don't know what he's doing there, and I don't understand why he's the centre forward. And I think that for this game, Richarlison, if he's fit enough, I assume that was the issue at the weekend, comes in to start. And if you've got that, when you've got Simons and you've got Mo Kudus and you've got Richarlison, I think that's a really good, versatile front three. I think Palhinha in midfield is an inspired signing, and Bergvall at the weekend showed some flourish to the promise that he has shown for a long time. You add that to a great central defensive pairing. Jens Bent's been amazing. At 7 or 8 positions locked down for Tottenham, who I think are very, very good. I don't think they will win the Champions League, to go back to your earlier point, but I think they'll get out of the group, no trouble. And I think that once you're out of the group, you get a good draw. They could be quarterfinalists. They could be semi-finalists, Tottenham. I wouldn't discount them at all in this competition. And if you're in the final 4, you see where you are from that point. So really like the look of them start of the season, and I think they'll win this game. In terms of Villarreal, I think the issues they've got are issues that Spurs are going to exploit. What have Spurs got this season? Pace, power, dynamism in midfield. What have Villarreal got? Thomas Partey and Dani Parejo. 10 years ago, I think it's an exceptional midfield. Now, I don't know. Thomas Partey seemed to be fading massively last season in the Premier League, and I think that's why he left. And I think Parejo might be the same age as me, which is old as hell. He remembers the 90s. No, I'm not doing that again. But it's an old, slow team in some positions, and that concerns me in a game like this. So go the Tottenham win. I think they win quite comfortably. Spurs 1.91 to win. To win to 0. I'm struggling to see a Villarreal goal. Comes in at 3.25. Another group bet. I know it's a cop-out, but it's good money this week in the opening week. 3.75 for a 1-0, 2-0, or 3-0. Anything that's double your money. I love it. I'd gobble that all day, so take that. And I think they win quite comfortably too. So under 3.5 and a Spurs win, that covers a lot of bases there, is 2.63. And just a straight-up 2-0 win is 9. It's a bit wild, but I think Tottenham win quite comfortably. And we saw them at West Ham at the weekend. When the Van de Ven third went in, Thomas Frank's team will shut it down. They ain't going to go for a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. And if they get 2 here, I think they'll get everyone off and get ready for the Premier League at the weekend.
Well, Tottenham to finish in the top 8 pays 3.0, so could be a good bet. And by the way, we are going to have tomorrow another video of this Champions League with the games on Wednesday and on Thursday. So check our YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to analyze the Tuesday games as we have done, and the 2 early kickoffs on Wednesday. First one is Olympiacos Pafos. Pafos is a new team in the Champions League from Cyprus. They beat Red Star, Dynamo Kiev, and Maccabi Tel Aviv to be here. By the way, Tom, two Spanish managers, José Luis Mendilibar and Juan Carlos Carcedo. Mendilibar history in Olympiacos since he won the conference a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Look, very good manager, right? Jose Mendilibar, and got that contract renewed at Olympiacos as opposed to coming in January and getting sacked in May as he was used to. So he's obviously built something there, and they score a lot of goals. If you look at their recent form, they score goals, they're aggressive, they're attacking, they have a very good coach. And they will know Pafos, right? They will know them. They'll know them well because of the Cypriot Greek cultural relationship. So it's like the locals will know a lot about them. But look, don't expect me to, right? I don't know anything about Pafos. Do you know what?
Watch Cyprus League?
I couldn't even find highlights of the game against Limassol. Okay, I tried. I could not find them, and it looked quite fun as well with 3 red cards and a goal. But look, I just think you look at Olympiacos here, right? That's all you can do. Until I've seen a bit more of them, I can't tell you what Pafos are going to do. But what I can tell you is they're massive underdogs in Olympiacos, are European regulars with people like, 𝐿𝐵𝐴 who score goals, or 𝗏𝗏 will score goals, a very good manager. They're going to win this. They won 5-0 at the weekend. I'd look for at least 2-0 here, maybe 3. Minus 1.5 is 2.2. Minus 2.5 is 5. Give me a couple of weeks on Pafos and I'll give you something. But for the minute, not a chance. If you're going to bet on this game, which I do not advise, go Olympiacos win.
Well, some years ago, we saw Apoel, the other Cyprus team, qualifying for the knockout stages of the Champions League. I remember playing against Real Madrid, actually, with Mourinho on the bench.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't been studying Pafos the way I have, Tom, because I can tell you exactly how they're going to set up. Who's going to be their star man? No, I can't. No, I can't. Because if they had been playing Shelbourne in the qualifying route, I would have been able to tell you all about them. But no, I'm not a Red Star Belgrade hardcore fan or Dynamo Kyiv. These aren't games that I would watch closely, but they were close games, and they did knock out some of so they are two teams with kind of historic European success of their own. So they are obviously not to be underestimated, despite the fact that we can't really estimate them that much, but we shouldn't underestimate them. And Olympiacos didn't need to go through the qualifiers because they qualified automatically because of the expanded tournament. And Greece was able to have an automatic spot. So I think Olympiacos, their European experience should obviously stand to them. It's their 36th time in the European Cup. They've reached the quarters once. They've reached the last 16 or 6 times, I should say. But like I said, Pafos shouldn't be sniffed at because they have taken some scalps so far in the tournament, and Olympiacos to win is only 1.45, so the value must be elsewhere. It's either going to be, like Tom said, in Olympiacos winning and scoring loads of goals, or not. Pafos, their games so far in the tournament, they were 1-1, 1-0, 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, and 1-1. They don't seem to play high-scoring games, so for that reason, I think this isn't going to be a high-scoring game. It could be 2-0 to Olympiacos, and Tom would be still delighted, but total goals under 2.5 is 2.02.
Well, the manager Carcedo was kind of a defensive guy when he was in the Spanish league. By the way, Pafos to finish last is 13. The odds are really high, so the bookies must see something good in this team. And if this looks like a Europa League game, next one is about 2 classics of the Europa League, actually, Slavia Prague and Bodo Glimt. And usually these teams do it really good in the Europa League, but the Champions League, of course, is really different. Bodo Glimt beat Sturm Graz in the Champions League playoff with a 5-0 in Norway. They are usually very, very competitive in the Europa League. Last season, we saw them against Tottenham, for instance, but they beat Lazio or Olympiacos. But especially they are dangerous when they play Ronan at home, really near the pole, the North Pole.
Yeah,
Santa Claus.
He's actually their left winger, I think, is he? Maybe in their over 65.
Maybe a year.
Yeah, yeah. They're the northernmost team ever to play in the Champions League proper, and it's their first time ever in the group stage or the league phase. And it's the first time actually a Norwegian team has been in the league phase or the group phase since 2007, 2008. So this is a welcome return for Norwegian football. Obviously, it hasn't gone through its its best period, despite Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's stints there as a coach. But yeah, Bodo Glimt, they were fantastic against Sturm Graz, like you said, 5-0, what a result. But a lot of their positive results tend to be at home. But Slavia Prague last season, if you remember, they weren't great. They were 38th in the Europa League last season, and in Europe they only beat 𝐬𝐵𝐺𝐴, and they did draw with Ajax and Malmo at home, so they were able to kind of pick up some points, but they were poor in the Europa League last season. They've never made the knockout stages of the Champions League. They won't this season either, and Bodo Glimt, they made it all the way to the semis of the Europa League last season. So two totally different teams from last season's Europa League, and if that kind of form can continue this season, you could think that Bodo Glimt could keep this one close. They're probably not going to win at 4. Maybe they might, but I like the look of them picking up something in this match. So I like Bodo Glimt Asian handicap plus a half, which is 2.02.
And actually, Slavia Prague are the third favorites to finish last in this Champions League. So the bookies consider them worse than Bodo Glimt, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason for that is the point you both raised earlier, in that going to Bodo Glimt, the conditions, the pitch, all of that, just like in their brilliant Europa League run last season, they are going to pick up a couple of surprise victories, or they'll hold a team close, or like I haven't got their entire fixture right in front of me, but there'll be a couple of games where they'll pick up points where you think, oh, if they played in Belgium, they'd lose, but because of where they play, they're going to win. And they're very similar to the team from last season. There's no one of particular value in the squad in terms of there's going to be a £20 million sale at somewhere down the line that saves the club. It's all €1 to €2 million players. But you know they're going to be well drilled. You know they're going to be exactly as they were last season. And if this was at home, as they were at the weekend when they scored 7, I'd quite fancy them. But I do see a bit of Slavia Prague, only because there's quite a pathway from Slavia Prague to West Ham. And so Tomáš Souček and Soufal and Diouf this season. So it seems to be a bit of a breeding ground for players. So I have seen him a little bit this summer as I was watching some videos of Diouf. And they've got a guy on loan in the front three, a Greek guy, 𝗀𝗀, who's on loan from PAOK, I think, who's a very good player, looks like a nimble little 𝐬𝐿_ďampskár type. So they have creativity moving forward, and I expect them to continue as last season in a sort of wing-back formation. Diouf's gone, so I'm not sure we'll play over there now, but it was all about wing-backs getting forward and crossing to a big striker with 2 players off them. So expect him to play like that. Expect them to be a real classic 3-5-2. And as you mentioned, this screams Europa League round of 16, right? We've seen it how many times between these two teams. I expect it to be competitive. I expect goals at both ends, but I would just shade for the home team because I think that they have good European pedigree and probably better individuals than Bodo Glimt have got. I'm here to be proved wrong. So take the Slavia Prague win at 1.88, but I think both teams score. That brings it to 3.25. I think it's going to be a classic Europa League 3-2. Probably worth a watch, unexpectedly.
Well, Tottenham, Monaco, Juventus, and Man City are traveling to the North Pole to play in this Champions League. Especially Man City are playing really in winter time. Well, Juventus is in November, but Man City have to go there 21st of January. So get ready, Guardiola, buy a good jumper for this game. Well, this is it. The first games in the Champions League. I was looking forward to listening to your tips, to watching the Champions League, and to put my bets in the Champions League. Guys, remember, as always, that we have our tipster competitions going on. You can register for free in Oddspedia, participate and win some cash prizes, and also participate in Rivals. I go very fast, so now you can see the screen with our tipster competitions. And now with Rivals. There you go. And now it's time for our safe bets. Tom, Rennie?
Yeah, there's a few that you could go for this week. I was going to say Benfica, but I get put off by Bruno Lage and my dislike of him. So I'm taking Real Madrid. I know it's a bit ropey because it's Marseille and they could pull off a shock, but I'd still fancy Real Madrid at home against anybody, anytime. So take them as your safe at 1.3 last I saw.
Ronan?
Yeah, I'm going for the Dortmund in a safe bet, but it's never Dortmund to win a safe bet. It's goals in Dortmund matches. Juventus and Dortmund over 1.5 goals, 127.
And the ACCA, Ronan?
Yeah, I've gone for a triple of over 2.25 goals in all of these games. Benfica, Karabakh, Juventus Dortmund, and Madrid Marseille for 291.
Actually, last season we saw a lot of goals in the league stage. A lot, and a lot of thrashing results. Let's see in this one. Tom?
Treble winners here. Real Madrid going to win their game against Marseille. That was my safe bet. I'm throwing in the North London teams as well. I do fancy Arsenal to go to Athletic Club de Bilbao and win. And I like Spurs against Villarreal. It's a perfect game for them, I think. So it's an Arsenal, Real Madrid, Tottenham treble, 4.21. Really surprised by that.
Yeah, very good odds. Well, guys, this is it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed our trip around Europe. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Ronan. See you this week. Bye.